showtime!
A man like Ric Flair leaving the wrestling industry has been disappointing not just for his fans, but also for the followers who have gotten used to seeing his face on screen forever. Ric Flair has one of the longest careers in the history of WWE, spanning over 6 decades. Imagine that. But even though Ric has enjoyed a star-studded professional career, the legendary actor has had a tragic past, right from being abandoned as a kid to the death of his son and the abrupt ending to his WWE journey. Let's dig in. Humble beginnings and a fruitful career. Ric Flair has given his fans countless memories ever since he stepped into the ring. There's been a good bit of ups and downs in his star-studded career, but the one that always stands out whenever you shine a light on his theatrics is the heart attack scare he gave his fans in 1998. The whole thing happened live on an episode of UCW Monday Nitro after Flair gave a promo calling out Eric Bischoff. Now, fans who have been following wrestling since the early 90s know how Flair wasn't always on the good side. He, along with his son David, was part of some very weird storylines, a couple of which had him buried in the desert or working with the notorious Magnificent Seven faction. But while Flair always managed to maintain his stardom despite the dirt he had to throw himself into, faking a heart attack on live TV was a new low for the Nature Boy. Let's go back to the very beginning of WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, back when it was still known as WWF, World Wrestling Federation. He debuted with the American Wrestling Association, AWA, in the 1970s, fighting his first fight in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. Born in 1949, Flair was the child of Luther and Olive Phillips in Memphis. His birth parents, due to whatever reason, gave him up, and he was later adopted by Kathleen Kinsmiller Flyer, 1918-2003, and Richard Reed Flyer, 1918-2000, thanks to the efforts of Tennessee Children's Home Society. The family settled in Edina, Minnesota, where the young Flair lived throughout his childhood. Considering that Flair has been married 5 times at different times throughout his life, it is safe to say that his personal life has been absolutely dramatic. In August of 1971, he tied the knot with Leslie Goodman, then his first wife. In spite of the fact that they had 2 wonderful children together, they divorced in 1983 after being married for a total of 12 years. The second time he married Elizabeth Harrell was in 1983, not too long after the first time he had divorced her. He did this to keep the momentum going. As a result of the fact that Flair and Beth had 2 children between the years 1983 and 2000, and that the audience witnessed all 3 of them performing at WCW shows, it was evident that Flair had a satisfying relationship with Beth. After being together for 23 years, Flair and Beth decided to split up in 2006. In May of the same year, 2006, our man married a 3rd wife, Tiffany Vandemark, without further delay. In 2009, Tiffany filed for a divorce, leaving Flair to marry Jacqueline Jackie Beams, his 4th wife. This ended in drama. Even though they broke up in 2014, the show continued, and in 2018, Ric wed Wendy Barlow for the 5th and last time. In 2022, after only 4 years of marriage, Flair and Barlow decided to end their 5th union. I know it sounds tragic, but this one actually has a happy ending. The couple got back together in May 2022 and haven't looked back since. It makes one wonder and hope for the best for Ric. For a man who has had such a successful career as a professional wrestler with so much consistency, he sure did have a hard time settling into marriage over the years. Flair was good as an amateur wrestler in his early teens and ultimately got to have good exposure as an amateur fighter as he was getting trained under the legendary Vern Gange. Vern was a famous wrestling trainer and promoter back in the day, with the guidance of whom Flair could grow into his persona as a wrestler loved by all. Born as Richard Morgan Flair, Richard became Ric in the ring in 1972 when he fought against George Scalp Iron to a 10-minute draw. Ultimately, it got him the name Ric Flair. Back in the day, Ric weighed almost 300 pounds and had short brown hair. He had a lot of charisma for someone who was just starting, and it aided him into becoming a person who practically led the industry later on. So what makes a 70-year-old man so relevant today? It's because Ric Flair never took a step back and has been relevant for all generations. Despite having 16 world championships to his name, Ric doesn't consider himself the GOAT. Flair believes a former rival of his sits atop the list. He has never shied away from praising new talent, which makes him so great. For a man with such a celebrated career, Ric has every right to be missed after his tragic departure from the entertainment industry. A recent podcast, Flair mentioned Michael's iconic battles with The Undertaker, along with their epic showdown at WrestleMania 24, as standout examples of his exceptional talent. I don't have to think twice. The greatest performer performer in our business of all time is Shawn Michaels, Flair said on WWE's After the Bell podcast. Flair praised the Heartbreak Kid for his versatility, noting that he was a phenomenal babyface and also a convincing heel. He took charge during that match in 24, Flair mentioned. According to Flair, the individual he believes is currently the top performer in the industry is none other than his daughter, Charlotte Flair, who holds the title of SmackDown Women's Champion. He observed Charlotte's impressive athleticism, unwavering drive to excel, and impeccable sense of style. Ric's career has been colorfully decorated with countless achievements. For a well-accomplished man now in his late 70s, Ric's surely lived it up. After his debut in the 1970s, he went on to bag some big wins in his name. In 6 decades of his career as a professional wrestler, he has bagged 16 world championships. Wow, talk about having a cool grandpa. This is not all. In the 16 times he's been world champion, Ric was an NWA World Heavyweight Champion for a total of 8 impressive times, a 6-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and a 2-time WWF Champion. Some sources even go as far as to say that has been the world champion 25 times instead of 16. No doubt Ric has been in the industry for so long. The man was born to win, and he kept winning till the day he decided to leave the industry entirely. The unexpected leave in 2021. After having such a long celebrated career with the WWE, Ric decided to leave and take a step back. This news came as a shock for many and broke the hearts of millions of fans all across the globe. Ric stated in a social media post that the WWE and him now have a different vision for his future. As fans and the media jumped to conclusions, Ric, in his wisdom, made it a point to mention in his post that he had no bad blood with WWE at all. He wrote, "I am officially able to respond to all the press related to my requested release from WWE, which they have given me. I want to make it really clear with everyone that I'm not upset with WWE at all." Ric further went on to explain that he was at a different stage in life and no longer saw himself working on the same vision as WWE. That's quite understandable, isn't it? Let's see what the complete statement said. "They solely are responsible for putting me in the position of life that I'm in right now, where I'm seen in the brightest light ever. We have a different vision for my future. I wish them nothing but continued success. Thank you for everything. Nothing but respect." Although all of this appears too good to be true, it is important to keep in mind that WWE has a long history of individuals leaving behind some seriously controversial trails with their farewells. Many people were taken aback by Ric's statement because it was reported that the Hall of Famer had resigned with the company a little more than a year ago. Still, even after signing the new deal, Flair has made rare appearances on WWE television. After some investigation, it was discovered that Flair was feeling quite frustrated with certain booking decisions, leading him to decide to quit altogether. Eventually, he took matters into his own hands and approached Vince McMahon directly to express his concerns and request to be released. Known for always being blunt and rebellious in his approach, Flair openly stated that his tragic goodbye had a lot to do with the contracts with WWE. "I mean, in fairness, I don't like WWE contracts," Flair explained. "I understand it, but I don't like it, but I've seen a lot worse." All sorts of news circulate fast when someone as big as Ric Flair decides to take retirement. Another news article brought to light a certain drink that Ric decided not to endorse in the advertisements. His statement very much indicates that it could be a reason why he decided to step out. He revealed that he had to become the face of a venture with Mike Tyson, which featured cannabis in a range of edible products. In a conversation with Chris Van Vliet, Flair said, "It's fine, I don't work for them. I mean, I'm always going to be indebted and be thankful for the relationship over the years. But when you work with them, you're pretty much locked up to, to anything. And they have a tough, enforceable contract, so I wouldn't be able to do the marijuana. I certainly wouldn't be able to have the energy drink unless I gave them 50% of it, or something like that." Flair went on to share his opinion on WWE's contracts and their control over their stars. Fans guessed that this statement could very much be the reason why he took a back foot entirely and was disheartened by WWE altogether. Flair has been known for his behavior towards his fans and for avoiding controversy, even if it seems to follow him around. He ended the conversation by stating that he personally didn't like the campaign, but understood that the company made the rules and went along with them however they wanted. Flair commented that he's seen a lot worse situations for people, removing all doubts from fans' minds that he was bitter about anything, making it easy for them to interpret the situation as something that was indeed his own decision and not something that was triggered by whatever the company did. Everyone loves Ric Flair. In a recent turn of events, the Indian cricket team won the T20 World Cup. How does cricket become relevant to wrestling? Great thinking. Ric's influence is quite universal, making this specific instance a prime example. Rohit Sharma, the captain of the Indian cricket team, used Flair's iconic strut while collecting the T20 World Cup trophy on Saturday, June 29th, after winning the final. Rohit copying Ric's famous strut made it an iconic moment for sportspersons all across the globe. Flair, a WWE Hall of Famer, was famous for his confident strut in the ring, perfectly embodying his nature boy persona. BCCI Secretary Jay Shah was there to present the trophy to Rohit, and the India captain decided to add a touch of flair by doing the Ric Flair strut. Ric's 60-year-old career came together quite beautifully in this moment, as a sportsman from an entirely different sport mimicked the living legend. Flair celebrated this moment by commenting on Rohit's Instagram post, saying, "Rohit Sharma taking a page out of my playbook. Woo!" Ric added many new things to mainstream wrestling and never shied away from starting trends. He was one of the key reasons why the figure 4 leg lock became popular. The move existed before and had been used by some big names in the industry, but it was due to Ric that it became popular. What they say stays correct here in his case, that whatever he touched turned to gold. Ric's magical persona added life to everything around him, and this move was no less. He took it, and he made sure people remembered that he was once the pioneering wrestler who popularized it for years to come. With the rise in media devices, such as the early television sets, WWE fights became house favorites. People who are now in their 30s can all look back and recall moments from when they were children, glued to their TV sets to catch a glimpse of their favorite wrestlers body slamming their opponents. WWE offered charm and drama of the best kind, and no one could resist it back in the day. Over the years, it grew with such intensity that WWE became a household name. A fan reminisced in an online blog, talking about how he would be glued to the TV as a 9-year-old, ready to watch the matches. He further added and commented on Ric Flair, saying, "I don't want to like him, but I end up doing so before the match ends, because his charisma is radiating through the television screen. He definitely lived up to his persona because his flair was undeniable." Ric has influenced people outside of his wrestling career, and many entertainers have commented on him in their gigs, which has made them very popular. In 2017, the American rapper Offset experienced a very concerning period in his career. He decided to give it a boost by writing a song called The Ric Flair Drip. This song was an ode to the greatest wrestler in the sport's history. The song's popularity was immediate. Ric decided to personally walk down the aisle at his own wedding, with the song playing in the background, as it had gotten so popular. Although he has always been notorious for his entries, the epic song played at his wedding unquestionably worked to boost his charm. During the time that the song also sprach Zarathustra from the film 2001, a space odyssey was being played in arenas all over the world. It also served as a signal that the Nature Boy was proceeding to engage in combat. Ric's career has been filled with some iconic moments, specifically highlighting those of his iconic entrances. Let's dive into some of Ric's most fantabulous looks and how they helped fans boost their love for him. Throughout his career, he became famous for his fancy robes and how well he adorned them. Paint the room red with this one because Ric's most iconic red robe, the Ric Flair Drip, made the rounds in the media for being such a flashy choice. The fact that our favorite Ric Flair wore this stunning red and silver robe in such a fashionable manner has solidified its status as an all-time favorite. Starrcade 85 was Ric's unique choice to have an all-white robe with purple butterfly accents, but like everything else Nate wore, he made it work. It worked so well that over 30 years later, he would don a very similar pattern for Ric Flair's last match. The robe was adorned with purple butterflies, making it an iconic and flashy choice to wear. Despite the fact that the gown was relatively straightforward, the glittering butterflies remained true to Flair's persona and assisted him in creating yet another iconic look that he shared with his audience. During that evening, the only thing he did not wear was the bandana that matched the outfit. If we're using flashy and Ric in the same sentence, then it would be a shame not to talk about the flashiest of all outfits, the big shoulder padded sparkly chrome and black gown. Though the color scheme was quite simple, the epic wide shoulders made it stand out. The gown looked like a fancy centerpiece entwined with a glass chandelier, all sparkly and fancy. No wonder Ric always became an instant center of attention. It's because he knew how to carry himself. Flair's most iconic robes is the black and silver butterfly robe. The robe was a flashy black and silver with the most iconic butterfly motifs all over it. Ric confidently wore it, flaunting the feathers around its neck and wrists. The look became an absolute stellar in 1992, and Ric got all the well-deserving limelight for it. More than the look itself, the robe also carried an interesting backstory of how it almost got lost once, and Ric found it miraculously. Another of Flair's iconic robes was the Green Jungle. This green and brown beauty was a loud jungle present of its own kind. This unique piece beautifully highlighted Flair's identity as the Nature Boy, and fans have loved it throughout. For someone who was known for wearing the brightest colors when entering the ring, Flair's famous gowns took an interesting turn, and his all-white Starrcade 1987 made the news as a snow-white gown that was unlike any other. This iconic look was an instant hit with the crowd, making it one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. Darius Rucker, an American musician and singer, had jokingly commented that he would like to be buried in the same gown. Last but not least, one of his most iconic looks is the deep blue and white feathery gown that he wore at his retirement match against Shawn Michaels. This gown became one of the most iconic looks carried by Ric, as it was worn at such an iconic moment in his career. All teary-eyed, Ric walked into the aisle for WrestleMania 24, adorned in this luscious blue gown that was absolutely breathtaking. The feathers all around the neck beautifully held Ric's posture as he walked towards the ring. There was another reason why this gown later became so popular, as Ric's daughter Charlotte also wore a less white version of the same thing and made her entry to the ring accompanied by her father. This iconic look came into existence 8 years after the original owner wore it, at WrestleMania 32. On numerous occasions, Ric has provided us with some of the most iconic and irreplaceable moments that he has ever experienced in his career. These moments are something that he has never repeated. From his famous strut to his famous entry song and everything in between, Ric has provided everything that can possibly be imagined with his contributions. The time that Ric spent as the leader of the Four Horsemen is yet another instance from his past that would be remembered as a moment of great significance in the annals of history. It is generally agreed upon that the original Four Horsemen enjoyed a regular presence in the World Championship Wrestling and were widely regarded as the most successful professional wrestling stable in the annals of the sport's history, were a consistent part of the World Championship Wrestling Championship. Even though a lot of managerial and group member changes took place within the group, Ric Flair continued to be a consistent member. Ric had already entered the ring as a 4-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion when the group was still in its early stages of formation. He had also won the Tag Team Championship 4 times, which occurred before the formation of the group itself. He owned the previous iteration of the title, which was known as the Domed Globe Belt, and was also known as the 10 Pounds of Gold. This is the belt that is currently being used by the NWA. Where is he now? Now is the time to take a trip to social media and see this incredible 70-year-old wrestler living his best life. If you are still wondering where your favorite wrestler hides, now is the time to explore social media. The posts that Ric makes on social media are extremely entertaining, and if you give it some thought, you will realize that he is, in fact, a 75-year-old overachiever who is currently living his best life on Earth. He seems to be reminiscing over his old days quite a lot, but is living it up nonetheless. Ric has enjoyed a long life in stardom, and now has decided to just chill out and step back, away from all the lights and glamour. Ric's Instagram is filled with all sorts of activities of him sharing his best life, and in some posts, captioned "Living it up in Vegas." It really does make you wonder, huh? Most people in their 20s are dreaming of living life with the amount of energy that Ric has in his 70s. Ric Flair might have taken a step back from stardom, but his legacy keeper, his daughter Charlotte Flair, is now in the game. The Flair name is as fresh as ever. Entering its 7th decade, the Flair fandom doesn't know when to take a break. Charlotte Flair is loved by all, and it is not just due to Ric Flair being her father, but because of her charm and charisma as a female wrestler.
Oh, there's her daddy, Ric Flair! What an emotional moment!
No doubt that people still love Ric, but Charlotte has her own fan base. A fan took to the internet and commented on the father-daughter duo saying, "Rich Flair is basically a nostalgia. I'm not dissing him. He had legendary matches with Steamboat, Harley Race, Sting, Randy Savage, etc. But Charlotte Flair is basically a new generation who actually exceeded the older generation. The Queen's mantra is to go big or go home. Charlotte is ambitious and skillful and doesn't know when to stop. As of March 2023, Charlotte has won 14 world championships and she does not have any plans of stopping. Her father, Ric Flair, and the all-loved John Cena are the only 2 wrestlers in history who have such a rich history of having 16 wins in their names. Charlotte is aiming higher and is hoping to break even their record. The Flair name is no less than a living legend. Be it Ric himself or Charlotte, the better version of her father, the Flairs rule the wrestling world with all their might and rigor. Other wrestlers retired before Ric Flair, but what was it about his retirement that made it such a big deal in the wrestling industry? Ric was already in his 50s when he returned to the sport after receiving a major break in 2001, which is not the youngest age that a wrestler can be. On the other hand, Ric quickly became a fan favorite, and at that point, people could not help but become accustomed to becoming familiar with him. In the first place, The fact that he was leaving the wrestling industry was the primary reason why fans were so dissatisfied and angry about it. He came, he conquered, and he made sure that people knew who he was. Despite all the scandals and all the controversies that he underwent during his career, he made it out stronger and better than before, which made the fans grow fonder of his presence. If one could have the charisma that Ric has, they'd conquer any industry they set foot in. He even made shit-talking popular. Imagine that, simply by throwing in comments in the ring such as shouting at the top of his lungs, "I've got more cars than most of you have friends. I'm addressing you as a punk. You're standing in front of God right now. Y'all playing catch-up ball to the nature boy. I'm so high on being Ric Flair each day of my life." These insults became a trademark of Ric Flair, and again, no one complained because he handled them with immense charisma and charm. One of Ric's most recent posts on social media was a picture of him smiling with a smile that was a little bit toothy. The caption for the picture read, "Start your day with happiness and gratitude." The man's energy is truly contagious because despite the fact that fans are saddened by his departure from WWE, his excellent physical condition makes one imagine that they are not. He was a fun-loving, wild old man who always strived for the best in life, and perhaps it was the right time for this legend to take a break, relax, and enjoy his old days as a former person.